Hey friends, this is Jordan with O & Co Games. My team of 3, Ray, Noah, and myself are making a pixel platformer that is centered around satisfying levels of difficulty and compelling characters in a consciously crafted story. The game is called Tethergeist. You can wishlist it on Steam with the link below, and welcome to our channel. Over Labor Day weekend, my team and I ran a booth at PAX West. PAX is a 4-day event in Seattle running from Friday through Monday, where games of all shapes and sizes come together for a massive gaming convention, and over 100,000 attendees come to play demos, attend panels, and to chat with developers in person. Like other indie games around us at the convention, we had a 10x10 space where we had a few stations with playable demos of our game. Tons of people came to play Tethergeist, and it was an excellent experience not only chatting with everyone in person, but also watching players genuinely enjoy our game. We met many important people in the indie dev scene, and we saw a healthy uptick in our wishlist as a result of showcasing our game there. But of course, it wasn't a cheap endeavor. Reserving a booth was expensive alone, not accounting for all of the expenses that come with going on such a big trip like this. So in this video, I want to give you the unadulterated perspective of what it is like to run a booth at PAX from an indie developer's perspective. I'll talk about precisely how much money we spent to be there, how much work it took, spoiler, it was exhausting, who these mysterious important people we met are, and just what it was like showing our baby in one of the biggest physical public venues an indie game could possibly be in. So before even going to PAX West, we did a lot to prepare to be there. Many of you know that our game has been in development for nearly 3 years now, so even just being accepted was no small task. Noah submitted our game for consideration, and just a few weeks before the event, PAX reached out to us telling us that we were in. They provided us with a space of 10 feet by 10 feet, a couple of chairs, a table, and 500 watts of power, which will matter here in a bit when I talk about how much PAX costs. With the green light to showcase Tethergeist there, we got to work preparing a convention version of Tethergeist and getting all of the physical materials together to stand up our booth. For the convention build, we handpicked specific sections of Tethergeist that exhibit the various environments we have in the game. The game as a whole will include 7 to 8 chapters, but at this point in our development process, we only have artwork for about 2 of the chapters, as well as artwork for the Spirit Realm, which makes its appearance throughout the game as side quests and additional challenges. So in the convention build, I created this menu that allows the player to first select the sample we have for chapter 1, then progress to chapter 2, and finally the sample we have for the Spirit Realm. We conducted a lot of playtests on this build to ensure it wasn't too long. When I first put it together, I made a build that I could complete in 8 minutes, so I figured the average player would finish it in 15 minutes. Turns out that as the game's developer, I'm a tad better at the game than someone picking it up for the first time might be, and that build was actually taking players closer to 45 minutes in our playtests. So we really had to pare it down and be picky with which content we included. But we felt good about what we landed on. At PAX, it took players between 8 to 15 minutes to complete, and I feel like we did a good job of showing the breadth of what Tethergeist has to offer. The other part of preparing for PAX was all of the physical and logistical things to get the booth looking good. Noah and Ray took point on that, so I'll let them talk about it in a separate video. For this video, I'll just say that designing the layout alone was a big task, not even accounting for all of the work that went into gathering all of the resources for it, designing and printing the signs, positioning the lights, getting the sample video organized, and managing all of the cords and electronics. I am extremely grateful that I had to do very little to help them as they created this lovely space for us at PAX. With our convention version of the game ready and all of the things for our booth organized, we turned to my minivan that's normally used for hauling my kiddos to school and soccer practice, and we loaded it up with all of our gear. With our monitors, TV, lights, stands, etc., we drove 13 hours from our home in Utah all the way to Seattle. The trip was honestly a great chance to chat as a team. We talked a lot about our company's strategy, game design as a whole, and even some really exciting ideas that we have for future games after Tethergeist. It was like a company team building activity, but actually effective. We got to Seattle late Wednesday night, then the next morning we headed over to the convention center where we spent the majority of our Thursday setting up our booth. There was a magical moment for me that day when we first walked into the expo hall. There were forklifts all over the place and cranes lifting signs up to set up this amazing wonderland of nerd culture and video games. I'm not kidding when I say I literally teared up a bit. So the days following were hectic, exciting, thrilling, and tiring. PAX opened the expo hall every morning, and every day from 10 to 6, we were on our feet talking with people at our booth and showcasing Tethergeist. It was helpful to have all 3 of us there so we could strategically take breaks here and there, including checking out all of the other booths at the convention. A lot of the time at our booth was spent chatting with people in line as they waited to play our game. With 3 stations, we were able to get anywhere from 12 to 20 people playing our game per hour, so the wait was never long. It's kind of funny, we learned pretty quickly that just about everyone had the same thing to say when they first saw our game. Seriously, something like 70% of people who opened their mouth did so to say that Tethergeist looks a lot like Celeste and Ori, which honestly, how could we complain being compared to masterpieces like those? We often talked about how Tethergeist does draw inspiration, especially in the level of difficulty and forgiving checkpoint system, but anyone who played our game for more than 30 seconds learned pretty quickly that we have our own unique movement system and that Tethergeist has its own very unique identity. We just also really love Celeste, and people who like Celeste are absolutely going to like Tethergeist. One thing that came up really frequently was talking about how Tethergeist is a lot more puzzly than other precision platformers, which sort of came as a surprise to us. Looking at it now though, it's pretty clear as to why. There are many obstacles that are intentionally designed to make the player stop and think before execution, especially in the spirit realm where players need to first determine the right order of their nectar before attempting the challenge. It was genuinely great to see our years of development and playtesting pay off as players constantly praised how good the controls felt, how intuitive the level and puzzle designs were, how fun the gameplay was in general, and how beautiful the artwork is. Seriously, I think nearly 100% of the people we talked to couldn't help but compliment how beautiful Tethergeist is, and that just warmed our hearts to the very core. There were also a couple of points of feedback that continued popping up, specifically wanting to cancel the spirit to save nectar and being able to reset the nectar hopper without having to die or pause and restart. They're small things, but when everyone brings them up, it's clear we have an opportunity for improved design there. Even so, the reception we had at our booth was overwhelmingly positive. Several people came back throughout the week to play the game again, and we had many people come to our booth saying that their friends had highly recommended checking us out. Some of those people are kind of a big deal. Like Noel, one of the co-creators of Celeste. The Noel from XOK Games, sitting there playing our game. It was seriously a dream come true for us. He hung out with us after playing and chatted for a good while too, saying he really liked Tethergeist and he was for sure going to pick up our game when it's released. And honestly, all weekend was like that, running into people who I admire in the video game industry. Tons of content creators were there, various people representing press outlets and big name publishers all came by our booth and honestly only had good things to say about Tethergeist. It was extremely reassuring that we're onto something special here, and honestly the whole experience was just super humbling for me, being able to meet so many stellar individuals who day in and day out have contributed in large ways to the worldwide indie gaming community. Beyond just the cool things that happened at our booth, we also had the great opportunity to meet tons of other indie devs at PAX West. Maybe it was just the fact that we were all in it together and we knew how much each other's feet hurt, but honestly we felt an instant connection with each other, which made it super fun to catch up with everyone at the various parties and events that happened each night after PAX. Not to mention their games were all just awesome. Games like Croak, Feltopia, What the Car, Impulse, Love Eternal, and Deathland Drifters. All just super friendly and great people in general behind those games. I'll probably dedicate a whole separate video to them and the exciting games they're working on. Okay, so with all of that said, was it worth it to go to PAX? Usually the first thing that you measure when asking this question is, well, how much did it cost? Which I'll just tell you straight up. It cost us $4,508.42. This includes all of the money we spent on traveling, like gas, getting to Seattle, expenses related to the equipment we used in the booth, the $2,300 base price just to reserve the booth in the expo hall, and all of the other expenses associated with making the trip happen. And I imagine our experience is a bit on the cheaper side since I have family in the area, so we didn't even need to pay for lodging. Not to mention we brought a lot of gear that we already had, like monitors and our Steam Decks, which I'm not including in the overall expense of the trip. Still, $4,500 is a large chunk of money, especially for a small studio like ours that's just starting up. I'm also not including the opportunity cost of PTO I had to take for my day job, and time is arguably one of the most expensive resources we have as human beings. Anyway, I'm beating the point to death. It was an expensive trip, but honestly, I think it was absolutely worth every minute and penny spent. For a few reasons. To get the first measurable out of the way, PAX resulted in 804 wishlists for us in the span of those 4 days, so about 200 wishlists a day. Considering indie games see about 10 to 20% conversion rates from their wishlists to purchases, and considering we're likely to sell our game for about $20, which admittedly is subject to change, so that's not the official number, and finally considering that we obviously don't see all $20 per sale due to Steam's 30% cut, taxes, promotional sales, etc., the amount of revenue revenue we'll likely make from wishlists gained from PAX is roughly around $1,000 to $2,000, which is a nice bump, but even in the best case scenario, it isn't even half of the expense of going to PAX. So wishlists and sales aren't really the main reason for going to PAX. Networking, however, is a huge reason to go, and we feel like we really made some fantastic connections at PAX, people who can really influence the success of our game. I'm talking about potential publishers, content creators, physical copy manufacturers, press representatives, and of course our fellow devs. I came home with an unruly amount of business cards, all from people I talked to in person who are genuinely excited about Tethergeist. Now, it's obviously very difficult to really measure the value of these connections, but suffice it to say that the right connections are worth much more than the expense of being at PAX. Outside of the connections we made, going to PAX also really put us on the map in the indie dev scene. We noticed a lot of buzz around our game at the convention. It was common for people to come to our booth saying that their friends or even other exhibitors highly recommended checking us out. If indie lovers at PAX didn't know of Tethergeist before the convention, they certainly did after. And that was honestly really exciting to witness.
It's very cool, and I actually quite like the gameplay as well. And then Tethergeist. Yeah, I played that, and again, just it's kind of a Celeste-like and just really, really satisfying movement.
A compliment given to you when they don't expect you to hear it is the greatest compliment you can get. And I feel like we saw a humblingly large amount of that happening with our game at PAX, which leads me to the last benefit we got from PAX, and that's an even greater amount of motivation to work on Tethergeist and make it the best game it can possibly be. Our team became even more united, and we're working together even more synergistically because of this incredible experience we got to have together. And I think that's something that shouldn't go unnoticed when considering the benefits of going to a convention like PAX West. So anyway, that will about wrap things up for now. PAX West was an incredible experience for our team and well worth the time and effort. We'll have to see if PAX East is in the cards for us next year. If Tethergeist looks like a game you'd like to play, head over to Steam and give it a wish list. You can also play our latest build over there as well. If you want to keep up on our progress on Tethergeist, be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and jump over to our Discord server to stay in the loop. All of the links you'll need are in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.